Welcome back, Red Spotters. Listening to the Red Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco. And you know what that means. We're back with another Marvel recap. This time, Hawkeye, Episode 4, titled Partners. Am I right? We recap the events of every episode every single week, and we talk about the episode as it happened in sequence, in spoiler fashion, but not before we give you our spoiler-free initial impressions of the episode, as we've been doing for every Marvel show that has come out, for the most part. I should say maybe every live-action Marvel show that has come out since May 2020. So, that's going to be the episode today on Red Spotlight number 362. But before we get to that, of course, there are other Marvel-ings happening in the ether. Some news to begin with. Shang-Chi was confirmed to get a sequel. Daniel David Creston, I believe, is the name of the director. Ultimately, it's meaningless to me because, quite frankly, I don't think the direction of the film mattered all that much, and him being back in the movie only really cements that, okay, well, I guess this trilogy is just like Black Panther. I'm not going to care. And that's where it is. And Shang-Chi is not a bad movie. It's a really middle-of-the-road Marvel movie. And in the third act, they did try and go for things that a lot of Marvel films don't go for in terms of pure spectacle, and I did appreciate that. But I don't know what the love that film seems to be getting these days is kind of, I guess, if I'm going to be real with you, maybe Black Widow shit the bed that bad to where people had very, 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 very low expectations of Shang-Chi, which came immediately after Black Widow, to where people just have completely raved and have fallen head over heels for it. But I myself am like, there's not much to say really about the movie, and there really isn't much interesting stuff going on. But that being said, it is coming back for a sequel, and I am happy for Simu Liu, because, you know, evidently China really is playing politics when it comes to, you know, cherry picking what kind of movies they allow to enter their market. And for those that are not aware, not a single Marvel film in 2021 was allowed to enter the Middle Kingdom to actually be, you know, seen by audiences there, and that is a big chunk of the real estate, especially or the market share, shall we say, for Marvel movies and the money that they make. And Eternals and Shang-Chi and Black Widow lost out big time. They suffered immensely by those films not being offered in China. And China, you know, they gave their excuse. With Eternals, they banned it because Chloe Zhao, who is Chinese, but she is anti-communist, and she's, well, anti-Chinese communist, and she's spoken out against them, the government in particular, so they banned that film. And then with Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, I believe, may have said some things in the past that were against what the Chinese government is in favor of, so they also banned that movie. So the fact that Marvel Studios is moving forward with more Shang-Chi films with Simu Liu is a great boon for Simu Liu's career, that he wasn't dumped and that they're moving forward with this trilogy, assuming that is a trilogy. And then, of course, a Disney Plus series, which I do believe we did talk about, or at least I did mention was rumored in the immediate weeks after Shang-Chi was released. So none of this, I think, is surprising news. And for fans of the series and for the characters, I think good. You're going to get more of that. But this is based on what the original film was. There's potential for sure. But if it's by the same people, it's like, what I lament in all of this is I wish that Kevin Feige would go back to what he did in Phase 2 of Marvel, where you don't need to have the same director for all 3 movies, and you took chances and you did spice it up, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was because of production issues with The Incredible Hulk, but, you know, that didn't get a sequel. And that director for that film, unfortunately, didn't I think, ever work again or didn't come back with Marvel. But with Thor and with the first Avenger, both of those movies, both of those franchises had different directors by the time movie 2 came along. And at the time, maybe it was suspected, perhaps because of how poorly Iron Man 2 was received, that they did that. And then, of course, when Phase 2 came along, we saw how successful, not in the case of The Dark World, but we saw with Winter Soldier how successful that was. And so when you get a different director to come in the middle of a trilogy, if you do plan trilogies, and most of these are planned trilogies, you have the potential to shake things up in a very creative way that would be ultimately good. But when you bring back the original people, like, you brought back Peyton Reed, you're going to you brought back Ryan Coogler, and he's bringing back Daniel David, and it's like, well, I already know what their thing is and what they're going to do with it. And in the case of the original Ant-Man, or Black Panther, and with Shang-Chi, I don't know if I can really expect anything more from them, more sequels from them, except increasingly deteriorating material. And I think we've seen that with with Peyton Reed. Quantumania may just be a better movie, maybe barely, than Ant-Man and the Wasp, only because of what other characters could be in play, and maybe just because of that. But do I expect Quantumania to be good? No. My expectation is it's going to be quite bad. With Black Panther 2, again, I take a very contrarian point of view. I recognize that film is beloved, and many feel that that's the best film, or among the best movies that the MCU has ever, produced. I think it is by far one of the weakest. And I think it definitely has suffered from the age of time. And it is an aggressively mediocre Marvel film, and I don't know what more to expect from that sequel, considering the fact that, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, he died. Yeah. Letitia Wright took over, and she has introduced a whole new set of problems for the people on that movie set, with her crazy ass not wanting to get vaccinated, and then her apparently demanding that she only be the lead in Black Panther 2 and then somebody else take over in Black Panther 3. According from what rumors have been, she's just causing a whole bunch of problems from behind the scenes. And so, I don't know. I've seen this tune before, and I just don't understand why, because quite frankly, Peyton Reed, maybe Coogler to an extent, although I don't buy it either. And then also with Daniel David Creston, it's really kind of laughable that you expect us to believe that these filmmakers actually had their way with these movies. Because you see them and it's like, Kevin, you directed these movies, really? You mean you didn't, but you had the director do the work for you, but you made all the shots and you call all the decisions, and all of these and everything, every decision in this movie has your fingerprints on them. The difference, though, in other cases, whether it be with Taika Waititi, but particularly with James Gunn, is you can tell, and with Chloe Zhao, those films were made by those filmmakers, far more so than Kevin Feige. So that is a long-winded way of me saying I don't necessarily care. I will inevitably see anything the MCU puts out, so I guess I'm in. When it comes to Shang-Chi, I want to see it do well, but I can't be expected to care much about it if you're going to bring back the exact same people, which is a larger issue for me of Marvel just doing this and refusing to bring in more people. The only time he's done that recently, and I think that's an admission of how badly Captain Marvel performed creatively, was when they did not ask Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden to come back and direct the sequel. They got in Nia DaCosta.
No, yeah.
So that's one of the few exceptions that we've seen where that's changed. And we're going to see the Marvels, I believe, in
2023.
Yes, I think. Yeah, they just revealed the release date for that. So that is my long preamble as usual. I know it wasn't concise, but I feel I made myself pretty clear. David, your reaction to Shang-Chi, more Disney Plus series, sequel, and then anything else you want to say in response to what I said.
No, I mean, I agreed with a lot of things you said. I am excited for Simu Liu to come back. I hope they do kind of like progress his character a bit more, kind of show more of what the rings can do and all that. But yeah, like you said, the movie was just fine, and bringing back the same director that did that could be worrisome. With Ryan Coogler, honestly, I think I give him more of a shot, especially just because, what the fuck can you do without your star? It's just...
Yes,
so
that's true. And Coogler, the thing with Coogler and what makes him an anomaly is that unlike Reed, and with all due respect to Crenton, Coogler is an auteur. Mm-hmm. He is a filmmaker, and he made amazing fucking movies.
Yeah,
with Fruitvale Station and Creed before the fact. So, what happened with Black Panther? That was a shock to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the rest of the world highly disagrees with that take.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be because he probably hasn't made that much of a fantasy or sci-fi movie. So maybe, hopefully, he kind of progressed after the first one. But again, there's some troubles with the sequel. Main thing, Chadwick Boseman gone. So I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't think I would be going in with low expectations. I think I want to put him pretty high just because I really want to give him a shot. But yeah, no. I mean, again, I'm glad Shang-Chi's getting a sequel. Either way, just honestly, like, the more superheroes in the Avengers movies, the better for me, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hope remains that they're good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, and I think you agree with this to an extent as well, is a lot of the choices that Feige makes with who he picks to direct the films, it's like, well, you don't see any indication whatsoever that he plans to change anything or change any of his approaches when it comes to these characters or how these movies are made. And if that's the case, well, I quite frankly don't know how much longer I'm going to be interested. Like his decision to put John Watts as the director of Fantastic Four. John Watts, who directed all three Spider-Man, the Home trilogy, as it's being called now. They're fine films, but they're just that. They're fine films. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how excited you expect me to get when you select a capably fine filmmaker to direct a movie that has shown no such vision or stylings of his own. And that's the problem for me, is that he continuously finds people. And if he does happen to find people that have their own signature style, he still can't help himself but overstep and try to take some of that away in their own film. For as much as I really loved Eternals, that he still got in Zhao's way, I would say, with a lot of the major problems that film had, were because he needed to inject, this still needed to be an MCU film. And so when that happened, it clashed with the movie that Zhao was trying to make.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't care. In the grand scheme of things with Marvel and everything.
No.
So
yeah, I get it.
Anyway, that happened. So since I already mentioned the Eternals of it all, what do you think's gonna happen with that? Because it did leave off with obviously teasing more stories with some of these characters. Mm-hmm. There was kind of basically a cliffhanger with half of them being kidnapped by Arishem, and then the others, met up with Thanos' brother, played by Harry Styles. And my thinking is, you don't cast Harry Styles and then do nothing with him with what you've teased. So what are they going to do next with those characters? Are we really going to leave it at that and never revisit that ever again? Because that would be pretty fucking embarrassing. But then also for those of us that do enjoy the characters in the movie, pretty sad. My guess would be is maybe because the film didn't do as well domestically, although to be fair here, on a couple of different levels, Eternals had a much higher budget, clearly. I mean, duh, look at the movie, had a much higher budget than Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is, I mean, it speaks for itself how beautiful it looks. But because of it had a significantly higher budget, whatever it did box office wise was not going to be anywhere near as impressive as what Shang-Chi did, because Shang-Chi had a significantly lower budget. When in reality, if you look at the worldwide box office, if it hasn't gotten there yet, Eternals and Shang-Chi more or less, when it ends its run, are going to be separated by what, $10 to $15 million worldwide? That's more or less the same. Like Eternals had, basically was saved by the international box office. But here at home, it wasn't getting as much play. And I think we can definitely, thank the American audience for that, as always, to deliver on those kind of things. But I don't know. I would like to see an Eternals 2. Provided Chloe Zhao does the movie. If you're gonna get somebody else like a fucking Peyton Reed, get fucked. But if you're gonna, literally, I'm at that point. But that's what I want. What do you think? Are we gonna hear more about this, or are they still making up their minds what they're gonna do, if they're gonna do anything?
I think we're gonna hear more about this. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with the characters. I mean, are we going to focus on all of them, or are we going to focus on some of them? Because that's a big critique people said about the movie, is that they kind of wish it was in 2 parts. Because there's just so many characters. I would be
You could make the argument. You could make the argument, even though it wasn't at all by design. Oh, no, Eternals Part 2 is coming because Part 1 ended on a cliffhanger. Yeah. Because there's more to the story. So they can retroactively say, oh, Eternals Part 2 is coming.
Yeah, I mean, they could. But also, though, just because they introduced a lot of stuff within the movie, not just with what is it, Dark Knight or Black Knight, I don't know what his name was.
Ebony Blade.
Yeah, the Ebony Blade thing, and also the Celestials and all of that. So I don't think you can just leave that to the side. I can see the Ebony Blade being left to the side, but because he was kind of pretty important to one of the Eternal characters, I feel like you just really can't ignore that.
Yeah. But also Harry Styles.
And Harry Styles.
You don't cast that guy and then do nothing with it.
That's true, but also at the same time, though, it wasn't on an after credits scene. Was Josh Brolin playing Thanos in the beginning of the first Avengers movie, or was that someone else?
That was not Josh Brolin, no.
Yeah. See. So I mean, that's basically even in Guardians.
In Guardians, he was cast at that point. See. But by the end of the first Avengers, no, it was not Josh Brolin.
Okay. See, I mean, I know that you had like more lines and everything. It wasn't much of a tease. It was more like, right, here he is, people. There's this guy. But yeah, either way, it was an after credit scene.
Real quick on Eternals, I just watched this really wonderful video essay. Kind of a smaller channel. His name is Pilar of Garbage. That's an interesting name.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that means, or maybe it's called Pillar of Garbage, as in like a pillar of garbage. Maybe that's what he meant.
If it's 2 L's, then yeah. But
oh, then damn, I'm illiterate. Yeah, it is. It is 2 L's. Yeah. It's Pillar of Garbage. Damn, what's he saying? Pilar. I think it was maybe thinking of Emperor Pilaf or something. I just watched a really wonderful video he made. It's about 40 minutes long, so not terribly long for a video essay. Again, there was one time I showed you a 5-hour video essay. That was funny. and it's titled Eternals is good, actually. A video essay. Marvel's existential masterpiece. No, really. It's not so much an analysis of how good of a movie it is. It's more of an analysis of how good it presents these philosophical questions and ideas that were really, the intent of Chloe on Chloe Zhao's part. And so if you want to, if for whatever reason people or who are listening are confused about like, what, you liked Eternals but it was so boring and there were too many characters and there was hardly any action and it kind of sucked and it was slow and it was long and I didn't really understand what was happening here and it kind of came off as cold and yeah. But that part when they mentioned Iron Man and Captain America, that was cool. Oh, and then also Ebony Blade and Harry Styles. If you're that kind of person, and let's face it, most of you are, I think this video will, and that may sound condescending, too bad. I'm sorry. I'm at the point where I don't care. If you care to know why some people really did respond to the film, this is a good video to go watch and see. So that's definitely one to keep in mind for. But yeah, to myself, I don't know what they're going to do with this. I expect if they don't announce a movie, that's going to be in it. Like, that's basically admitting that the film was a failure. And that would be pretty devastating because, again, I think Chloe Zhao delivered something that, despite its many flaws, resembled something kind of special in the realm of the MCU. And for the studio to come out and say that it was a failure, they're not going to say it was a failure, but they're going to say it by not greenlighting a sequel. That's bad. And yeah. Anyway, what else do we have here? Oh yes, the daredevil of it all. Kevin Feige this past weekend, he's been giving a lot of interviews, and he was asked about when we would see Daredevil pop up in the MCU, but particularly regarding the actor Charlie Cox, who of course played Matt Murdock in the Netflix series. And he said, and I quote, not I quote, but the paraphrasing of it was, if we were, not we are, and not it is. And a lot of people have conflated those things. He said, if you were going to see Daredevil pop up in the MCU, it is going to be played by Matt Murdock. I'm sorry, Charlie Cox. So what was confirmed is Charlie Cox is the MCU's Daredevil. Whenever that happens. Of course, though, he was playing coy because we know it's going to happen in less than 2 weeks now when Spider-Man No Way Home opens. If you've seen the leaks, and if you haven't, oops, I guess I just spoiled it for you. Although not really, because who didn't know this already? I mean, Kingpin, for fucking sake, is going to make his debut in Hawkeye pretty soon. We know, if you haven't been listening to all of the reports and rumors, Matt Murdock is going to be in She-Hulk, and he's going to be in Echo, and he's also going to have his own rebooted show when that picks up on Disney Plus. So again, if you've been living under a rock, perhaps you may not be aware of this, but all of this is confirmed that it is going to happen. My main thing, and I had this very interesting back and forth with Peter, not the one in the chat, then I just recorded a podcast with him yesterday, but that's actually going to be uploaded after this is uploaded. At least that's my plan at the moment. So you wouldn't have had a chance to listen to what we had there. But I guess like for me and where I was coming from is a lot of people, take this, canonicity, or this canon stuff or this canon business real seriously. But my thing in terms of like how people have, in the arguments that people have used to establish what is canon and what is not, I think it's two very different things to say that Charlie Cox is canon and his show on Netflix is canon to the MCU. I don't think those two are necessarily... I think you definitely had a taste of that. At least if you read the chat, I think it was 2 days, or it was yesterday, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you read it, then you basically got the gist of what we were saying.
Yeah.
We came to the conclusion, ultimately speaking. Well, I don't want to ruin it because I want you guys to go and listen to that episode. Yeah. But more or less, it was an interesting discussion. What do you think about all of this?
No, I mean, it's just to just bring up part of it. Basically, it's just that, you know, I'm glad to have Charlie Cox. I mean, if and when we get him, I'm glad it's Charlie Cox. I think he was great. I still need to rewatch Daredevil. I just haven't gotten to it. But in terms of like if his show is canon or not, that's just, I don't know. It's just it honestly doesn't bother me, just because like it's kind of lazy to just kind of be like, yeah, this thing happened to me once, and then that's just enough for everyone to kind of go, the shows are canon and all that. And I don't know. It's
like just... to me, like legitimately, it is off-putting. Like I don't understand why you can't just say, like, in reference to what you were saying there, if a moment were to come up with Matt Murdock and any future MCU property, and he's asked about a particular event that happened in his show, and he kind of like laughs it off and kind of ignores the question, that very much is on the part of Kevin Feige, refusing, just flat out refusing, just go ahead and acknowledge the events of those show as they happened in his Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I don't understand the resistance to do that, especially since of all of the Marvel Entertainment properties, Daredevil was universally acclaimed. There were very little issues with it, creatively speaking. It was a massive success. A massive fan base. You saw the reaction on film Twitter and all over social media this weekend of how excited people were to have this back, and in reaction to Feige's comments. I don't understand if you're going so far to have the exact same actors from those shows be now in your MCU, but you still insist on the stories had in those shows to keep them at a distance. I don't understand that resistance, and as a fan of that show, it's kind of patronizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially because like you get material out of that. Like it's just gonna feel so weird that you're just kind of like throwing this character that's already established for us at least, and just not bring up anything as if like, you know, he just like, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna write him like he just turned into Daredevil? He just had, you know, he was Daredevil for a while, and now he's getting into these big problems that like, are we going to is he going to relearn some of the character arcs that he went through? And it's just kind of like, there's one show that did this kind of one show that did this right was in the CW, the Legends of Tomorrow. NBC had the show Constantine. It only lasted one season, and then it got canceled after the first season. I guess didn't do well. But the CW though, they got the guy who played Constantine in that show to be on their network, and he first came out on Arrow as like a little cameo. Oh, yeah. And then he went on to be on Legends of Tomorrow, and they actually used the story from the NBC show to create a new season, to create an entire season basically for him. I think. Wow. Yeah, I think.
Was it NBC or was it CBS?
I think it was NBC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure, because I know that Supergirl aired on CBS before she went to CW.
Yeah, and then with her, you know, there was just, you know, alternate universe, and that's it. And then later on, they brought her to the CW verse, I guess. But with Constantine, it was, well, at first they sort of established his character on the show. You know, he had to like work well with the other ones. They brought up some stuff from his past, and then I think it was the season after though that they finally like brought it to fruition, the stuff that he was going through. Which, just slight spoiler, one of the things is that he fucked up on something, and this little girl got sent to hell. Basically, he's always blamed himself after that. On his second season, they brought up the girl. He saved her from hell, and now that character is in the show, The Legends of Tomorrow. So like they just keep building up on what he's done, and I really like that those two characters in the show. They were great. So, that the CW did it right. They actually like brought his character over and made him better. So,
yeah, I just because I keep thinking of, well, what is a Daredevil show going to look like on Disney Plus? Because that is happening. You're going to reel back in the same actors. We already know D'Onofrio's in play, and other people will be in play for whatever Daredevil show you're going to have on Disney Plus. What the fuck is that going to look like? Is it going to be like how it felt on Netflix, or is it going to be more along the vibe that we currently are seeing from Hawkeye? So that's one question. The other question therein lies, of course, is any of the stuff that happened in the Netflix show going to be ever brought back up or referenced, or is it going to mean anything? And then the other thing, obviously, is Daredevil was canceled prematurely. It wasn't allowed to have a conclusion, which, of course, definitely is upsetting for any fan of the show. But it was canceled with a fourth season already written. And it's going to be brought back, but you're still never going to see that fourth season.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll pull in ideas from what they wanted to do with that fourth season.
Yeah, they can probably.
But that relies on the fact that Feige even bothers calling the people who ran that show to run this new version of the show.
I mean, the biggest thing, though, is that it's not going to be as violent. Like, that's going to be super fucking jarring to see. Because, people love Deadpool, and a lot of it's because, they went all out with the R rating. And so, like, if all of a sudden we see a PG version of him, it's just kind of like, okay, this is weird. This isn't really him. And it's going to be the same with Daredevil or with any other character from the Netflix shows. Luke Cage wasn't violent or anything, so like they can use him, but there was some stuff going on in the show that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
So
remember when Kingpin killed a Russian with a car door?
Yeah.
Basically decapitated him?
Yeah, that's the biggest one. I mean, even in the third season, there was a pretty bloody fight towards the end and everything. I mean, for one thing, if you're gonna bring him back, you got to bring back that violence. Like, I mean, it's not gonna be Daredevil if it's not like that.
But therein lies the question that I feel no one is really asking themselves: is this really something to celebrate? If it's gonna mean a watered down version of the show everybody loved, that Netflix? I think that's a fair question to ask, but no one seems to want to ask that question.
I don't think it's much of a celebration. Forgetting the Daredevil character itself, that's sort of a celebration. I mean, it would suck that it wouldn't be Charlie Cox, or they're just rebooting the character. But I would like to see the Daredevil in the MCU. I would love to see him in an Avengers movie. But since we're getting Charlie Cox, we're getting basically the one from Netflix, but it's not going to be the same. That's not much of a celebration, honestly.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been trying to think about this in the context of how I would feel. And I think you and I did have earlier in the year when we talked about other rumors of Clark Gregg or Chloe Bennett, at some point it was rumored. I don't know if it still is the case. It seems not, but at one point they were rumored to be in the Secret Invasion show. And you had asked a question about, well, what if it is their characters, but they're different versions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Like at the time, it was like, well, I wouldn't know how to feel about that. I don't. It would almost feel like a backhanded compliment, Like, okay, you acknowledge that these characters were popular enough that you want them in your universe, but at the same time, you're going to hold their entire storylines at distance and maybe treat them as if they didn't happen, Or maybe they did happen, but they didn't. It didn't happen in the exact same way that it happened on the show. And again, my point is, I don't understand the reason for that. I don't think there's no reason for that. There really isn't.
No.
But anyway, there is that. Since I did mention S.H.I.E.L.D., it's been trending apparently all week. When this Daredevil stuff was, making its rounds, all the Netflix characters were trending on Twitter. Because that definitely opened the floodgates. And now it's like, all right, Kevin, let's talk about some other characters here. Does this mean this person comes back and that person comes back? And Feige was like, well, we make these things for people to watch them, and you have to watch and see how it happens. But a lot of stuff is going to be answered soon. I think is something to the effect of what he said in some of those other press interviews. A lot, and how in season 5. Melinda May said to a Chronicom when they came back from the future, when they picked up some activity. This is the very first episode. This is the episode that Yo-Yo got her arms cut off. Spoilers, by the way. Now, that was pretty horrific. Remember that sequence? In this episode, May made what was at the time inferred out to be kind of a meta call to the like maybe like a breaking of the fourth wall kind of thing, where she said, the Chronicom was like, you guys are really popular. Like, he was making a mention to the fact that, they're on the every agency's most wanted list. And she made her line was, we have a small but active fan base. which is remember that line? Which is very much what the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has always had. And so, but maybe not that small. Maybe they're that small where they make a lot of noise here. But from what I saw even just today, it was number 1 trending on Twitter on the entertainment tab. And it's been trending for now, I think, 2 days in a row. And why that thing got started was because Feige kind of made some comments about like, well, you gotta, people keep asking and asking for him, and I take notice of that. And it seems like he does, at least in the case with Charlie Cox coming back. And so it really did ignite the flames once more for a lot of calls to be made to, hey, give some attention to S.H.I.E.L.D. in that regard. So I wanted to make note of that. And then also, and this is an interesting connection, Elizabeth Henstridge, who played Gemma Simmons on the show, as you recall, did direct not only the best episode of the final season, maybe one of the best episodes of the entire show of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was her first directorial debut. Evidently is now going to come back into the realm of directing, but for another superhero show. And get this, of all the shows, and this one's definitely one of the breakouts hits of 2021, she's going to be directing an upcoming episode of the 2nd season of Superman and Lois. Now that is exciting, particularly for her, and I'm glad to see that I guess her work on that episode got her attention, and I'm excited to see what she does and maybe becomes a director in her own right. Mm-hmm. Very exciting opportunity for her.
Yeah, I'm excited. The trailer came out for the 2nd season. Looks interesting.
When's it coming out?
I don't remember. I was just mostly focusing on what's going to happen. But
right. So there is that. But then something else pretty seismic dropped. Now this has literally nothing to do with the MCU.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
But it's pretty well. Well, if we're talking about Miles Morales, I don't know if you were talking about something else, but yeah, that's what I. Yeah, okay, great. I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. We'll see about that. But we were kind of treated to a little itsy bitsy teaser for kind of a big movie that's going to be coming out in 2022, and it just so happened to be not just a teaser trailer. It's more like an opening scene of something. It was a whole scene, it felt like, for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, which is the sequel to the Academy Award winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from 2018. The first thing I kept thinking was when I saw that was it's been that long since Spider-Verse came out. Jesus, like that came out in December 2018. Right now we're in December 2021, and we're not gonna get into the second Spider-Verse film until 2022 in October. Anyway, what was announced was it was announced a while back that well, actually I'm not even sure it was. Maybe it was rumored, but that Across the Spider-Verse was actually going to be split into two movies, and it's going to be basically the two sequels to Into the Spider-Verse. It's going to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. And don't worry, they were made back to back, and that means that we're going to get Part 2 of Across the Spider-Verse in 2023. So, thankfully, we don't have to wait that long between those movies. So that's great on that, off the bat. But to this particular teaser, it is so hard to really to do what it did. But in a matter of, I think it was, a minute and a half to 2 minutes, they were able to instantly remind you of how great these characters are, how great this world is, how great the filmmakers themselves are behind all of this and everything. It's kind of a crime against humanity how they dropped that on us and we weren't allowed to watch the whole movie then and there, because that is the definition of excitement. That's the most excited I've been in any kind of teaser or trailer, honestly, in years. And it gives me so much faith. I already had a lot of faith, but even with I guess they introduced maybe one or two different co-directors. Again, this movie had like 3 or 4 co-directors. The first time around, it still has that. Kemp Powers, I believe, from Soul. I don't know if Kemp Powers was one of the original co-directors, but Kemp Powers is definitely one of the co-directors now. It just gets you so excited. It's just impeccably made. It was perfectly timed, and goddamn, Patrick Willems could not have put it better himself when he said it really just blew No Way Home out of the water, and it hasn't even opened in theaters yet. It's so sad, but it's so funny. Mm-hmm. This was outstanding. I loved it.
I loved it too. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was just nice to see the art style again. Nice to see Miles and Gwen together. And I really like that they made them taller. Like, they actually look taller. They look a bit older, and you're kind of like, oh my God.
Did, yeah.
Like, years has probably passed now. Like, what the heck? And my one tiny nitpick is that when Miles goes to the other universe, his art style changes with the universe that he's at, and I'm kind of like, I really liked how they all were different in their own universe, and it's probably gonna be a story reason they're gonna like, we're more stable here, and so that's why they able to transform into different animation styles.
When that happened in that teaser, was he wearing the wristband that Spider-Gwen was wearing? Because if he wasn't, that may have to do with that reality. I think somebody mentioned this, I believe, either one of the reactions that I saw or maybe something that I read. But you see in the teaser that Gwen does have a device that she's wearing on her wrist, and she's not like, because in the original film, they were going on the fritz, and because their animation style was clashing with this particular with this verse instead of it being in their home verse. I think there's going to be a story reason and why she's wearing that wrist, that they fixed that glitching, and maybe in what you're talking about, maybe Miles accidentally flies into it and he's not wearing the thing that Gwen and the others are wearing, and that's why his animation style changed. And so I think you're correct on that's not how the rules were, technically speaking, in the first film. But I did hear somebody mention that that's the reason for why you see Miles have a different animation style in those sequences where he kind of like is zooming through the Spider-Verse.
But the reason...
I know what you mean.
I mean, I'll wait. But either way, though, like, it's... so far, it seems as if, if they travel to a different universe safely, though, bodies will change with that universe. And I mean, it's cool in terms of like you'll get different designs. Like it was really cool seeing Miles's costume in both universe and all that, and they looked really good. I just really like though that he had clashing animation styles in the first one. Well,
Yeah.
With what is this? Spider Noir, black and white. The anime
And
style.
you probably still will have that.
Maybe. Yeah.
Again, yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, that's just a little nitpick. There's gonna be a story reason, I'm sure, and so it's gonna be fine. But other than that, also, I don't know if you thought this, but did you think Gwen was acting sketchy in the trailer?
She was acting... Well, I guess now that you mention it, she was acting a little extra.
Yeah, it's just like, just kind of like, she's just
like it was her. It was her, but it doesn't necessarily sound 100% like her to just like be teasing Miles, not like teasing as in like name calling, but like kind of like playing with him and like asking him to jump out the window and go on an adventure. Mm-hmm. That is pretty random.
I would like to think is that, like I said, they look older. They're definitely taller. Mm-hmm. I would like to think that it's just because, teenage hormones, angst hormones, whatever, kind of like changed them both. Because I didn't notice this, but someone pointed out though that when Gwen shows up, I think she's like sitting on the bed, but then she walks up and like moves to his desk. You see, it's just like very quick. Miles like looks at her butt and like looks away, kind of like, oh, I shouldn't be looking like that.
Did he?
Yeah, I think I haven't seen that myself.
Did he? Oh my god! Oh god!
Yeah, I did. I haven't seen it. So, like, go look at it yourself. But yeah, someone apparently pointed that out, and I was like, okay. So I don't know. So I mean, I would like to think that's just, like you said, teenage angst, teenage hormones that kind of like just making them a bit different. But either way, though, to me, it's just kind of weird. Like she just pops up and it's like, hey, what's up? Let's get out. And like as if like this is normal. Even I don't know. Are you looking at it? Or?
I'm trying to see it right now. I don't want to stop obviously the recording of it, but I'm just trying to. I mean, but they definitely do look taller.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think her suit was. It looked almost a bit darker on the black spots and everything. And then I don't remember. Did she have sneakers? It looked like she's like wearing almost Converse in the second one. Did she have those in the first one? I feel like they were more like. Man. It looked more like slip-on shoes or something. I don't know. I don't think it was like ballerina shoes exactly, but if they were different though, I love it. I really love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not equipped to answer that question, but maybe. And of course, there's a lot of interesting stuff that was all throughout Miles' room. Did you catch the little Easter egg to Mitchell's and the Machines?
No.
You didn't see it, so you know how in Mitchell versus the Machines, the dad has this little like moose, like wood carving. Mm-hmm. That's in Miles' room.
Ah, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. So again, Mitchell versus the Machine, also produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are the masters. It seems like so. Yeah, that was another one of that, and of course. To say nothing, I mean, to me, my favorite moment of the trailer or the teaser was, when Gwen jumps out and then Miles like runs over and then he sees her and then of course she's like standing up like a Spider-Man would do, but then you hear the score in the distance as it's building up, and you see the excitement in Miles, and then of course it kind of gets the excitement in us. It's like, oh man, this is so good. Let's do this, and then it jumps immediately. It's an explosion of energy as we're like going through all these different multiverses, and the two that we saw, one of which I believe was from a comic called Spider-Man 2099. Which, by the way, I think that's I didn't know this, but apparently that's the one that was teased at the end of Into the Spider-Verse with Oscar Isaac. But both of those universes are just like so visually mesmerizing and just next level. And it's everything Peter says it's missing in a lot of the live action Spider-Man films these days, where there's just no distinct visual style or, you know, anything that looks anything interesting in them. Whereas you see what in Across the Spider-Verse, it's just to say that it's next level. It's not even fair. It's like it's like 10 levels. It's the next 10 levels, really.
Yeah.
Honestly, I run out of things to say about it, but it was as perfect as you can get for being a teaser.
Yeah. Exactly.
And too bad, because it's like, damn, that's the Spider-Man movie I want to watch now. Like, I want to watch that now because that looks sensational.
Yeah.
No Way Home looks okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I know they dropped it now because No Way Home is going to make so much money. Everyone's going to be watching it, and of course they're going to have that. You know, I would hope they're going to have that trailer before we see No Way Home. But that also kind of like isn't fair to No Way Home, because it's like, why are you showing me, you know, a sampling of a better movie? But they both share the name Spider-Man. Yeah. So there is that. Also, can you give some props to Marissa Tomei lately? I've seen some clips of the press tour for Spider-Man No Way Home, and I guess it really speaks to how you know, Kevin Feige and you know, the people at Marvel have given her nothing to work with in the Spider-Man films of Aunt May, that the reporters ask the kind of ridiculous questions that really have no bearing in the realm of fact. But it's kind of hilarious how Marissa Tomei kind of sort of maybe feels the same way as we all do about this version of Aunt May, where, like, you know, there was 2 clips that Peter sent today of like 2 reporters that were asking questions about, like, you know, how apparently in one of them where they were saying that Tomei redefined what Aunt May was and that she changed the character, or in another one was making reference to Aunt May's arc. And I love how Marissa really didn't know what to say to that, and so she didn't really say all that much.
Oh, wow.
Because it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, like, it is a ridiculous question to ask about Aunt May's arc, because that begs the question, what arc?
Arc, yeah. No.
And again, like, there's an extensive there could be, I'm willing to recognize a debate. When people talk about arcs, they primarily and almost always mean character arcs. I will accept a lesser version of arc, although it's not the same thing as a character arc, and that is a story arc. And a story arc it's not something a character is going to go through that's going to change them, but it's just that it's the story that they've been assigned in this particular storyline. So, for example, like Hulk and the thing that he was fighting with himself in Infinity War, that would be the example of a story arc, because it's limited and you barely see any of it, but it gives the character the semblance of something going on with them. But the actual arc and him becoming Professor Hulk, we skip completely.
Yeah.
And him transitioning into Professor Hulk, that would be what would be considered a character arc. So when I think about, like, May's arc, okay, well, she's had no character arc because she has no character, so are they talking about a story arc? And then I think about that, and I think but nothing comes up.
Yeah, I mean, unless they want to talk about the arc of the different Aunt Mays, like going from
that wasn't what was asked.
Okay.
I mean, maybe if you want to be fair to them, but I know when I saw that clip, that's not what was being asked.
Okay.
She was being asked in particular about her version of Aunt May in these movies, and we know very well from these movies she's had nothing to do. In the last one, Far From Home, she was what? She had like she was in the beginning. She was a presenter, and then she was working. and I guess she had a fling with Happy.
Yeah.
And that was all of it. That was literally all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in Homecoming, she had one really good scene in cheering Peter up and getting him ready for the homecoming. And that was it. Like, she has not had any kind of meaningful or an insightful character-based conversation with Peter Parker really at all.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments have gone to Happy Hogan. They've gone to Tony Stark. And I guess Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange in the next one, or I guess if you want to say Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire or other ones, like maybe Doc Ock even gets that, but it seems like anybody but Aunt May, like, has any kind of impact on Peter Parker's character in these movies. So, yeah. Do you think the reason they're having her do press, because I don't recall her having to do that, because to be fair, there's just been no need for her to do any press because of how little she's involved in these movies. Do you think the character that we know is going to be a character death, according to the leaks? Peter, lately, is starting to get to the point where he's going to bet money now. Aunt May is the one that's going to be offed off. Considering how little not even how little, considering what she's not been given to work with, that seems highly insulting.
Mm-hmm. I want to say no, just because apparently we are. I mean, I don't know is it confirmed for sure that we're getting another trilogy of Spider-Man?
Nothing is confirmed.
Nothing is confirmed. It's just a bunch of rumors.
No.
Okay.
No, not well. It's not just rumors. Amy Pascal made comments in interviews that she wants to do another trilogy with Tom Holland. But Marvel, Feige, Holland have not declared anything to the point of we are for sure going to make 3 more Spider-Man films.
Mm-hmm.
I think in all likelihood what Pascal said, that's what's going to happen. But there's been no official confirmation, and there has been no report from any of the trades to confirm this, other besides Amy Pascal, who is the producer of all of these films, on the representative from Sony. That's all we have to go off of.
Well, if it happens, I don't think they would kill her off for sure. But if it doesn't, I wanted to say they really, really shouldn't kill her off. Not just because of, she hasn't had much of a presence within the movie. She's just really just there, being a mom to Peter, protective, I guess. And mostly because, that in the comics, that was some heavy shit that happened, when Aunt May almost dies in the comics. I don't know if you ever heard what happens, but they find out Peter's identity. Kingpin puts a hit out on his aunt. Aunt May gets hurt super badly, and then Spider-Man was just like, if she dies, you die, and beats the shit out of Kingpin. It gets fucking dark whenever Aunt May gets hurt. So to do that in the movie and for sure, it's just gonna be sad, and then that's it, and then he just has to move on. It's just kind of sounds kind of like a lame thing to do for her character. And especially what was it in the Spider-Man game, the PlayStation one, spoilers, she does die in that one, and it was a great fucking scene. Oh my gosh. And it's not going to be a good payoff if she dies in the movie. And I'm sure Tom will kill it, he'll be sad about it, but it's not going to be a good payoff, unlike in the game where I actually cried.
But because in the movies there's been no setup. Yeah. There's been no character. There's been no character.
Yeah, what are we
talking about? There's no character to be had there. So killing her off, it just feels gross on several levels. Mm-hmm. But if it's not her, then they're not going to kill Zendaya. That's just that makes no sense. She's Zendaya.
I mean, really, the only one is Ned.
Oh my god.
Like, that's the only one where I'm kind of like, that's a for sure thing. Because I don't think they'll kill off Happy either. Like, yeah, fucking right.
What if they do?
I don't know.
I do care about Happy, so I would feel something about Happy dying.
Mm-hmm.
May, I would feel rage, because what a waste of a character.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, that was a lot. I'm sorry, I guess when you were saying about the storyline of like Kingpin putting a hit out on Aunt May, you know, the scene that kept going through my mind was the Sam Raimi version of Aunt May praying in the original film, and deliver us not from evil but from temptation. She was finishing her Our Father prayer, and then fucking Goblin blows up the place. That scene has been made into a meme, and it's so hilarious. I love it so much. You know, I will say that about No Way Home. At the very least, we're going to see Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe back as these characters, and that's something I never thought we'd ever see. So at the very least, we'll have that.
No, I mean, I'm gonna love those scenes. I'm gonna love when the other two Spider-Man come back. Like, I'm gonna freak out because I mean, I freaked out with the Luke Skywalker scene in Mandalorian. Like, you know,
did you?
Yeah, I did freak out. I hated it. Because like I was like, you guys are just doing this for the fans.
So you're saying
it's all about the fans. I don't give a fuck about the fans.
So you're saying that you simultaneously were affected by it and you were moved emotionally, but then also hated it?
Yeah,
that's a mix of emotions right there. Damn. I mean, when I saw that moment in The Mandalorian, I was like, these motherfuckers did it. Mm-hmm. I was in shock. And I was just laughing my ass off. Just like, wow, they actually went there.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh man. There was something else. Damn it, I had it literally right here. There was something else I wanted to say. Shit. Yeah. Well, we're gonna see it pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. When does it come out?
We're gonna see it pretty soon. December 16th.
Okay. I keep thinking 12 or 22, but I'm sure that's other movies, but whatever.
No, not that particularly soon. So I read something here. Well, I'm not even sure. Well, I'm going to read it. And it has a lot to do with today's episode of Hawkeye. Because this episode of Hawkeye, spoilers, had a lot of reference to Natasha Romanoff. Uh-huh. And a point that I was going to make, I feel is going to be encompassed by this, so I'm going to go ahead and read it off here. Because I think this is my sentiment. This is by IGN. Hawkeye, this is the headline. Hawkeye is giving Black Widow the eulogy she deserved. This is written by Amelia Emberwing. And this is how it reads. When Tony Stark finally learned that what it meant to lay down on the proverbial wire and make the sacrifice play, it was met with much fanfare. The world was suddenly ablaze with murals and memoriams for the man who saved it. But that's not the full story, is it? 2 snaps were heard around the galaxy at the end of Avengers Endgame. Hulks would bring back all those lost in the blip, while Iron Mans would take out the Titan Thanos and his armies, ensuring that the people of Earth would remain safe. But neither of those things would have been possible without Black Widow's sacrifice to retrieve the Soul Stone. Of course, we as viewers know that in the same way that we can quantify that makes little sense for the circumstances of Natasha Romanoff's death to be known the world over. She was a spy, a ghost, and never one to make her personal affairs known. Still, there was a narrative injustice to the lack of response to her death from both the Avengers as a whole and citizens worldwide, especially given Marvel Studios' agonizingly slow process of getting its female heroes into the mix. Nat wasn't just the woman who saved half the known galaxy and helped stop an unstoppable Titan. For years, she was the only Avenger woman. She was the only Avenger women got to see themselves in. Black Widow's sacrifice, coupled with the fact that she was the token woman for some time, made the fact that she was just gone hard to swallow. Her death was a satisfying narrative conclusion, thank you very much, for the character, but for her to be shuffled off with no fanfare just didn't make sense. Nearly 3 years later, goddamn, well, I guess in this universe, maybe in ours too, Hawkeye is seeking to change that. The one I didn't take, said Clint Barton. This is spoilers for the episode that we're going to be talking about. In response to Kate Bishop's question regarding the best shot he'd ever taken in Hawkeye Episode 4. Immediately, fans who know the Archer and Assassin story knew that he was talking about Nat. Turns out knowing their background didn't make hearing it again any less painful, though. The emotional punches continue later as Clint flashes back to his time as Ronin and he and Nat's final moments on the cliffs of Vormir. Episode 4 isn't the first moment where we see respects paid to the lost Black Widow. In fact, Natasha has been an ever-present figure in the Disney Plus show. In the premiere, we see the pain Clint experiences as he sees his old best friend cheesily depicted on the stage in Rogers the Musical. In Episode 2, features Hawkeye using the classic Black Widow catch and release tactic made famous by Nat in 2012's Avengers. I guess I missed that one. Later, Barton tells Maya Lopez that Ronin was killed by Black Widow. Lopez insists that he's lying to her, but every word the Archer says is true. Jeremy Renner really helps sell all of these moments. The show is undoubtedly about Clint and Kate and the future of the Hawkeye mantle, but some of the series' most impactful scenes are when Natasha Romanoff comes up in conversation. Renner has never had much issue with playing the action star, but the emotional tidbits sprinkled throughout the show really hit the mark thanks to the actor's grumpy dad who lost nearly everything and just wants to hold on to what he has left. Clearly, the series' continued acknowledgement of Natasha Romanoff, her sacrifices, and her overall importance to the MCU will continue, by the way, of her sister, Yelena Belova. Seems we'll be getting 3 episodes with the newest Black Widow now that she's made her dramatic entrance in Episode 4. As expected, Yelena's pretty pissed off at Clint. Well, we'll get into that. Thanks to the manipulation of Madame Hydra, or Viper, or Valentina, whoever you want to call, depending on how she's feeling that day. Nat's sometimes impressionable sister believes that Hawkeye is to blame for the death of Black Widow. After finally reconnecting with Nat in the long overdue Black Widow film, you can see why she's not very happy. The twist that Yelena likely doesn't expect is that Clint agrees with her. Some fans like to joke that the wrong Avenger died, but Clint Barton is basically the leader of that Change.org petition. The Archer is happy to be with his family again and wants nothing more than to spend his remaining time with them, but he fully believes that it was he who was meant to die on Vormir. The pain over the loss of Natasha Romanoff is ever present throughout Hawkeye, and it's what she's preserved from the jump. By showcasing some kind of actual emotional response to her loss, the series is finally giving her the acknowledgement that should have come almost 3 years ago. She deserved the funeral Tony Stark got, but we'll still call this a win, even if it's a little bit late. Amen.
Yeah. This whole conversation could have been avoided if they just put a basket for her when they put Tony Stark's heart in the river. Like, you couldn't have done that? like I understand, like, oh, it's Tony Stark's funeral, he's the one that started it, but we didn't just lose him. Like, we lost Vision, we lost Black Widow,
Thor lost Loki.
We lost Loki, yeah. I mean, hell.
He lost Heimdall. There are people who died, yes. Mm-hmm. Gamora.
Yeah, even baskets for them too. It's just be like, oh man, like this took a lot. This took a toll, and so this whole thing could have been avoided.
And not only that, but it was made much worse. That much worse by the excuses that were, landed at our feet by. I love these guys, but these were some lame ass excuses. By Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely in particular, saying that, well, Natasha wouldn't have wanted a funeral. She's a spy. The world doesn't really know her all that much, which flies in the face of how the films presented her. She was the main woman Avenger for this universe
also,
for years and years and years. The ending of that deleted scene of Black Widow, especially, flies in the face of what those comments were when that little girl recognized who Natasha was and did the fist bump, which should have remained in the final film.
Not only that, though, but there was the scene of, did she have any family? And it's like, yeah, us, or something like that. It's like, should, like, okay, fine. She wouldn't have wanted a funeral. Cool. But her friends needed to move on. They needed some sort of peace, especially because they weren't there when she died, like with Tony. So, and and also they didn't have a body to bury. Like, no ashes or anything. So she needed that the most.
I think that also highlights how when the film was written and filmed, Avengers Endgame I'm referring to, they had no fucking clue what they were going to do with Black Widow, because again, Black Widow's arc in that film was the fact that the Avengers were her family, and the what was implied in that is that Natasha finally got a family with the Avengers. Little did Marcus and McFeely know, just a few years later would come out a film. They knew Black Widow was being made. They knew it was going to come out, but they didn't know, I guess, the context of what was going to happen. And that is, it turns out Natasha did have a family before this. So they're not her first family. But the film Black Widow seemingly, again, also contradicts that. Because when you think about it, so I guess we're led to believe that even Clint was unaware of Yelena, or the Red Guardian, or what was the other girl's name? The mom.
I don't know.
Like, hey, did their invites get lost in the mail? Like, did no one know of their existence? Because there was even a line, I think, after Clint, Bruce, Tony, and Steve are. They're in by the river. They're trying to contemplate what just happened to Nat, and Tony literally asks, "Did she have any family?" Steve says, "We were her family," and he's right. Except he wasn't, because it turns out she did have a family. These are just annoyances on my part.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense for Steve to say that, because maybe she didn't tell him everything. So I think that's perfectly fine. But either way,
it's true. Like, they were her family, but it turns out, also had other family out there somewhere.
I mean, either way, though, like, they threw in that family. I mean, one thing, it was just because they needed a new Black Widow, but also they just didn't really think about what was said in Endgame. So, also, another one of the excuses that Marcus and McFeely had was the fact that they recognized that their decision to kill off Black Widow, at the end of the second act of Avengers Endgame, meant that she wasn't going to be able to have a moment to have any kind of like good resolution or closure to that. And the excuse that they gave is, well, they are making a Black Widow movie, so hopefully whatever they do there is going to provide fans that closure. It didn't. That was an epic fail. It didn't provide any closure whatsoever.
So those excuses, no, not buying it. And holy fuck, did they really drop the ball there. So, but it gets even worse though, because this person's right. What she said in this article is true. It's like for years, it's felt now that no one really gave a fuck that Natasha died. And no one has like, yeah, Tony got all of this praise for saving the universe or whatever. Tony would not have been put in the position to make that move if it weren't for Natasha laying down her life. If it wasn't for her, they wouldn't have gotten all of the stones they needed. And it's felt for the longest time that no one cared about it. But what I actually am enjoying most about the show, Hawkeye, is we're finally seeing people care about that decision. Namely, Clint. We're seeing him still go through the after effects of what happened and him not over, his friend sacrificing herself. So I'm happy somebody finally is giving a shit about Natasha.
Yeah.
Jesus. And it's hilarious how this show is kind of providing more closure to Nat's character and her legacy than the Black Widow movie. Honestly, do you have any reason to go back and watch that movie ever again?
No.
Okay. Good. Yeah. It's enraging. Anyway, anything else to say about that take?
No. Just, no.
We'll just go ahead and leave it there. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Hawkeye episode 4. I really like this episode.
Same.
I really, really like this episode. Maybe I gave away why I liked it with the Nat stuff, but I feel like every episode kind of gets better.
Yeah, for
even
sure.
Even though still it did feel too short. It's like, come on, like just a couple more minutes here and there, but still, that last episode was mainly the wonderful chase sequence. But here, what really makes this show is the wonderful dynamic we have between Kate and Clint. And those two continue to just, they just work together as a team. Ironically enough, even though Clint's like, we're not partners and everything. But Haley Steinfeld so sells that. They're incredible. Like, honestly, everything that they do is reliant on the actors being able to deliver that capably. If we were in the hands of lesser actors, this kind of material really would fall flat on its face and the whole thing would fall apart. So really, honestly, it can't be overstated how much Steinfeld and Renner are carrying the show. Because if that dynamic doesn't work, nothing works.
Oh, yeah.
And these two are great.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
just the best thing about the episode is it just keeps progressing their relationship more and more until, I'm sure finally he's just going to give her the Hawkeye title and all that. So, yeah, great episode, especially with their relationship. And there was also a couple little things that they did that I really liked. We'll get into it.
Yes, absolutely.
Of other relationships and all that. So, yeah, it's just great.
There was an issue I had at the end of the episode, at the very end of the episode, with a certain character, which we'll get into that. I had an issue in terms of like that seemed a bit random, like really random. But overall, the conversations that Kate and Clint have together are wonderful. Like the deep discussion that they have, also just the light breezy stuff. Like this is where the Christmas score really does work. Is when you have the campier stuff, or the jokey stuff. That really is where it works. Again, though, it's interesting because you are right that there is no effort being made, at least as far as I'm able to discern at this moment, to give either Hawkeyes a theme. That's a really strange choice.
Yeah.
Especially since whoever the composer is on this show did a really excellent job of reusing some motifs from other films. I couldn't tell you the score from Black Widow because, of course, I don't like that movie and I don't think the score made any impression on me. But evidently, Yelena Belova, spoilers, but because you already knew that, had a theme in the film, and apparently that comes back when she's revealed. What that was beats the hell out of me, but there was a theme there apparently. So there is that. But there's also a wonderful use of the motif from Vormir in the discussion that Clint and Kate have about Natasha. When they talk about her, that comes up. Now, we mentioned earlier, I think maybe it was these were discussions we had. I don't know if it was an audio commentary on the Endgame movie or on something else, but we had discussed how the Vormir themes kind of presented differently by Alan Silvestri. And when I say the Vormir theme, I'm talking about the two scenes in which Gamora and Natasha sacrificed them. Well, the Gamora didn't sacrifice; she was murdered. I should clarify that. Oops. But when both of them die in those moments, there is a different approach that Silvestri takes in how he presents those motifs. In Endgame, I mentioned to you that you hear that in one of the big moments Natasha has in that film early on in the movie, and then we hear that come back again. And so you can make the argument that Silvestri turned a tragic anthem into kind of a tragically heroic anthem for Natasha when she sacrificed herself, or teasing that she was going to sacrifice herself. And so when Clint and Kate are talking about Nat, that same music is played in the background. Now, I don't know if you caught that, but I caught it immediately. And it was like, that's awesome. Now, that's something I wish Marvel would do more often, is capitalize on your motifs and bring them back to the surface. But then again, maybe only I would notice that. But yeah, I appreciated that. Of course, all the Nat stuff, I appreciate it. Also, hilariously enough, the LARPers come back in all of this. So that was fun. So overall, strong episode. And yeah, this is just a fun show. You know, I'm vibing with it. I'm liking it a lot.
Yeah, same.
All right. So David, let's go ahead and start off with what happened in the episode in sequence. Where do we begin?
Where do we begin?
So we left off with Duquesne holding up the Ronin sword last week up to Clint's face.
Yeah, okay, I remember now. Yeah. They're there. They realize it's Hawkeye and they're like, oh my gosh, it's the Avenger. Wow. And then
Archer, he calls him Archer.
Yeah, Archer.
At first he calls him Archer. But kind of the running gag with him is he's kind of a funny guy, and as he's intended to be. But one of the running gags that they have with him is that I guess there's a little bit of a culture language barrier with him, where he's messing up a lot of commonly common phrases or names or whatever. So like I guess he legitimately thought that the Avengers name was Archer and not Hawkeye. So that was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Kate, she's all like, whoa, calm down, we're working a case. And the mom's like, you're working a case? You're working with the fucking Avenger? What? Like, as
any mom would react that way.
I mean, I'm sure she's used to Kate being in trouble by this time, or being in danger by this time, but to actually like work with an Avenger is like super fucking surprising for her.
Yeah, that'd be like the equivalent of like, I don't know what, the Secretary of State paying you a visit and saying that and to your mom, oh, I'm working with him on a film project or something.
Yeah. But yeah, they were trying to keep it a secret, but then the mom finds out, like, someone tried to like go into her computer and all that, get some info. But I don't think they told her much of anything. It was just kind of like...
At first, they tried lying. At least at first, Kate tried to play it off and trying to keep it close to the vest and everything. And I think she then, after, her mom, Vera Farmiga, kept pushing admitted that Kate was trying to hack into it because she was working on a mission with Hawkeye. What specifically, though, she never revealed to her mom.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, at some point, the mom was just kind of like, okay, I think we're done here. She'll walk him out. She walked him out, but when they both got to the elevator, she was just like, is she in danger? She's going to be safe and all that. And he's like, I'll keep her safe. Like, I'm trying to get her out of this trouble as fast as I can. And that was when she brings up Natasha, going like, you know, no, I think he tries to explain it like, no, yeah, she's perfectly safe with me. She knows what she's doing. Like, she's very skillful. And that's when she kind of brings up Nat, going like, yeah, she was skillful too, huh? But look what happened to her. Bit of a jab, honestly, but whatever.
It is, but it's also fair. It's like she was one of the best, but she was like, basically the point was she was that good too, but it didn't keep her alive.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parent, that is fair, though.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, she walks him out, and then after that, the mom, Kate, and the boyfriend are together, and they're just kind of hanging out, making plans for Christmas and everything, and they just kind of had like this little family moment, basically. Kate was basically getting soft on the boyfriend, finding him funny. She's
on Jack.
Yeah, she's
Jack Duquesne. I love his mustache, though. Your sister mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago that she apparently recognized that actor.
Yeah. From a show.
A while back. Mm-hmm. But you're saying, yeah, this was the first time. This is the closest they came to acting like a family.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is maybe the first scene where they're actually kind of having a good time. All three of them.
Yeah.
And it comes, you know, real quick, that scene, how it starts off with, you know, Kate's mom explaining it to Jack about Eleanor. Eleanor is her name. Eleanor's explaining to Jack about, you know, Kate's history and her obsession with Clinton Barton. Mm. I love how no one in the room addressed the fact that Kate has a new dog.
The dog.
Like, the dog is just there. Pizza Dog is just there, and no one addressed it.
Oh, I actually even didn't notice that he was there. Oh, wow.
Well, he's a dog. He doesn't have much to offer.
No, I know that, but like, I know, but like, it should have popped into my head though that like, oh, are they not gonna mention the dog? Like, she got a dog, you know that, and so
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Mm. I thought that was gonna go. Nope. I guess it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, hey, they're rich. Who cares? I guess like, hey, you want a dog? You get a dog.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the scene. And what I find interesting here is, first of all, we did glide past something. But before we get to that, just to talk about this moment, this is a genuinely charming moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does make you, if you were of the persuasion that Jack was very suspicious, granted, there is something that comes up later in the episode that perhaps makes you feel valid for, like, as Kate was, to be suspicious of Jack. In this moment, it really does, like, it does make you question, really, how malicious Jack really is. Because he honestly comes across like an endearing and charming person with, unless he's that good at hiding it, but he honestly comes across like a loving boyfriend to Eleanor.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she's able to make her a person who, what Kate says, doesn't do dancing. He makes her dance with him, singing the Chestnut song, Merry Christmas to You. That was a genuinely loving moment. And also just, and I love how we don't talk enough about how incredibly talented Hailee Steinfeld is as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is able to convey so much without saying a single word, and just her reaction to her mom being whisked away by Jack, and her kind of like at first kind of like low-key throwing up in her mouth. Not that she does anything like she does the thing, but in her mind she kind of like, why am I finding this cute?
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of looks away, and then so much is happening with her face, and she's able to use that to really convey like how this is the first genuine moment in which Kate kind of really understands what her mom sees in Jack and why these two work as a couple. And it kind of makes the whole sequence really heartwarming. At least that's how I felt.
I missed that last part. You said it makes the whole sequence what?
Feel really heartwarming.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was thinking too throughout the scene. It's just that like it's almost like it was a bit of a slow turn from her going like ugh to okay, yeah. There's something here. Okay, cool. And then later on when just going a bit ahead, she meets up with Clint and he tells her like, oh, your instincts were right, and she kind of like goes, oh, I was right. Like she was starting to get a little bit disappointed, but yeah, I mean we'll get to that when we get to it. But
yeah, and but she doesn't say she's disappointed,
but you could tell,
but you see it on her face.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, no, I was just starting to like that guy.
Yeah.
That's what she's trying to say here. And we'll get to that moment too. But no, I'm glad you picked up on that as well, because that just speaks to how great Haley is.
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, I feel for people who have been following and have been suspicious of Eleanor, it was kind of a moment in this episode right in between this and then also as Eleanor escorts Hawkeye out the building, she asks him, so are you going to drop this? Or, I mean, are you going to be done with this case or whatever? And he flat out says, no, I can't do that. But what I can guarantee you is that that Kate's going to be safe. Then we cut to Eleanor calling somebody and saying that it's urgent. That seems pretty sus.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I have no godly idea who she could be calling. I mean, I don't know. I guess she works for Kingpin? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's who she's calling. But I mean, I don't know who it would be. But it maybe, especially since like remember her scenes from the first episode, maybe there's a lot more than we saw there previously of her having some shady dealings going on.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I hope this is the 4th episode, right?
Yeah, we have 2 more. Okay,
then I hope we get something in the 5th episode at least, just to kind of like, just give us something to really go, okay, she's up to something for sure. I don't know. But yeah, I forgot about that scene. Yeah, that was weird.
So both of them have some things that make them look really suspicious.
I mean, in that scene though, where he was like dancing with her, it did make me kind of go, okay, maybe he does care about her. Because like, you know, if this is like him being distant from her or just like playing her to, you know, get what he wants, he doesn't necessarily have to be that like that affectionate, I guess.
Right.
Especially in front of Kate. You know, it's not like he needs her approval of the relationship or anything like that. So I don't know. I think there might be something with both of them. Whether or not they're working together or they're doing their own separate thing and they both happen to be bad things. Who knows? Again, I hope we just get an answer in the 5th one.
Yeah. So we still got some lingering questions on there. But anyway, the fact that, you know, Kate realizes they're having a genuine family moment makes her kind of remember that Clint is all alone. Mm-hmm. Right? And so what happens next, David?
Yeah, so she goes back to their base of operations. she brought oh wait. So we see Clinton first in the place, and he's getting all these like frozen margarita mixes and like taping him to himself to like calm down his body. I skipped the scene. Shit. Clinton leaves the apartment, calls his wife, and asks her to look for some information, which I really like that. I thought that was really cool that the wife is doing something That's like a spy basically. And I also like how she was trying to keep it secret from the kids, but they were like, okay, she's talking to dad about something.
Speaking in Russian too.
Yeah,
because she was keeping tabs on one of the tracksuit gangsters.
Mm-hmm. So she got information about some.
This is the scene. Is this the scene where she brings up? And I believe it is because she is speaking in Russian. She tells Clint about something else that could have potentially, have been retrieved from the Avengers compound.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, let's put pause on this real quick, and I'm going to go off on a tangent, because we had said this in the first episode. Mm. Well, I don't know how the fuck these people got access, or maybe, to be fair to the Avengers, obviously there was so much debris, but still it is private property of Stark Industries. And here's my thing. And it goes back to how much of the events of Avengers Endgame do the public know? Because you can't have it both ways. First of all, like the fact that you have characters that know in such explicit detail the events that happen in the third act, in the battle particularly, as if they were there, is ridiculous. Like that scene in WandaVision where you have Darcy and Wu and Monica talking about, like, if Thanos hadn't initiated a blitz, Wanda would have beaten him, as if she was in person. That's how she was describing it in such detail. And then at the same time, which we'll get to this later, where Valentina, says to Yelena, who, by the way, is supposed to be a super spy, tells her that Clint is the reason Natasha is dead, and then she believes that, and then we see her later in the episode trying to kill Clint, and it's like, okay, so is she just that stupid, or she does not listen? Does she not have a phone? Does she not follow recent events, or is it not known? Because is it not known knowledge at this point that Natasha sacrificed herself, or is it not known knowledge? Is the fact that the world does not acknowledge Natasha's sacrifice because they were never informed of it, and that's why Yelena is going off in that direction? Or is Yelena that stupid and the whole world knows that Natasha sacrificed herself?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they know this is my wild guess, but, they know the events of what happens around the Avengers Avengers compound. Campus.
Wrong. Avengers campus. That's in Marvel.
In the Avengers.
No, that's in California Adventure.
Yeah, in the compound, because it's you can't really hide what happened there. You can't just go, oh, we just had a little accident. It's like, no, you had an all-out. This was more than just an accident. So there's not really much.
Yeah,
to
but
keep
were there
secret.
people recording the battle?
Yeah, as to why they revealed so many secrets about it. I mean, and also though with at least no, never mind. I was gonna say they're ancient, their sword. I'm sure they know everything, but how would Darcy and the FBI agent know? So that makes no sense. Never mind. So I'm sure it's fine to give that there was some information, I guess, I don't know, leaked or told about what happened in the compound. I think that's fine. As to with Nat's sacrifice, I doubt they would tell people, yeah, we went to a different planet to pick up a stone to bring back the universe and all that. Like, people already come back from the dead. Just adding that more information is just gonna be super weird, I think. So I'm sure they would at least tell the public, Natasha died, bringing back everyone. As to whether or not how, I'm sure they just didn't disclose that. They were just, I'm sure for people, it's just enough to say she sacrificed herself. She died, bringing people back.
And I was going to ask a question relating to that, and this is what brought up the tangent, and that is, the Avengers compound was destroyed by Thanos, but what was a valuable piece of technology, a revolutionary piece of technology that was at the Avengers compound? The technology for time travel. So, a couple of things. The Avengers' understanding, of course, that there was a lot of valuable stuff in the rubble just allowed people to just walk in there and take what they wanted, when there could have been time travel technology in that rubble, theoretically speaking. Also, if we're going under the assumption that your theory is correct, and that is the Avengers only selectively, informed the public of what went down, because there's been no mention of this whatsoever. So the fact that time travel was invented was not disclosed, and it was kept from the public, correct?
Probably.
Because if that were to get out, there would be some interested parties who would move heaven and earth to acquire that technology.
Yeah, true. But also though, I know in the auction they said, "Oh, this was taken from the Avengers."
Because I thought, real quick, that Rolex, I thought that could have been a time travel. Rolex.
It could have been too. I mean, I'm sure if it was Tony Stark's technology, he could have switched it up and all that.
Right.
But as far as we know, it's not. Yeah, it's more just holding data or something about someone as to who we don't know.
Information.
But like I was saying, at the auction they said that it was taken from the compound. It's an auction. Chances are they're just doing that to sell it, because again, this isn't supposed to be stuff that you're supposed to be taking in public. This is supposed to be you're putting in the place. And how are you going to sell this to someone? Hey, I got the Ronin suit. It was taken during transportation. Or here's the Ronin suit taken from the compound. What's more interesting to sell? And so when, that whole idea of they just walked into the compound and took whatever they want, I don't think that's true. I think it was just...
Right, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of, it was from the compound. They're saying it was taken from the compound.
Probably, yeah. That is an interesting thing. I think we stumbled onto it. Because, I don't know, I guess in this episode, with both Eleanor and Kate talking about Natasha with Clint, they never outright acknowledge it, but I thought it was implied that they were aware of what happened. So, I guess we don't have an answer if the public, generally speaking, considering how aware they are of a lot of events, we don't know then if it's public knowledge. Then, if the fact that Natasha sacrificed herself to get the Infinity Stones. Because if that's the case and the public do not know, then there would be no way of Yelena knowing. And that'll wrap back around later. So, to this moment, back to what we're talking about. And that is Linda Cardellini portraying Laura Barton here. And I love how much more in the know than I think we were previously led to believe, and maybe that much more involved Laura has been, maybe as a partner to Clint. And that also brings up some questions too. Also the fact that she, speaks Russian and everything, but she brings up the Rolex. And that is interesting. Of all the things to bring up, it was the Rolex. And there were certain theories about that particular Rolex, which we'll get to maybe toward the latter half of the episode, or at least the episode discussion. But yeah, that was an interesting exchange for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, she tells him, she asks him if he's fine. He's like, yeah, just banged up, but nothing broken. She's like, okay, put some ice on your legs to heal up and all that. And he does that. He puts the margarita mixes on his body and everything. And then Kate shows up. She has pizza. She brought some stuff over. And like you said, she felt bad that he was spending the holidays alone. So she decided to bring the holidays to him. She brought some movies and just stuff to decorate the place. But they also were setting up a plan as to what to do next. And, that's when Hawkeye drops this information about Duquesne. Yeah, he drops it.
And specifically, what does he say?
He was basically the CEO or something of basically giving, how do I explain it?
His company is money laundering for the tracksuit mafia.
Mm-hmm. And he's basically the one running the company that's laundering it. So, he tells her, your instincts are right. Something's fishy about him. And she was just like, fuck. You could tell there was a disappointment in her face and all that. Also, Clint got the Ronin sword back. He stole that from the place.
Yeah, that was pretty easy, wasn't it?
It's like, hey, cool. One out of two, or like 2 out of 2 now. But yeah, and so they were setting up a game plan. And this part, kind of a nitpick, but she writes down like, okay, we got to focus on this and this and this. And one thing she writes is the cops. She says, I got to get the cops off my back. And I'm kind of like, have they been bothering you? Like, yeah, I know there's that phone call.
Aside from the one time?
Yeah, like there's that phone call now, but like, it seems like you might have skipped the meeting.
It seemed like maybe they lost interest in you, girl.
Yeah.
Like maybe they all moved on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, like that doesn't come back here either. So like, maybe it is going to come back at some point.
I hope so. It's just, it was weird to bring that back. But, it's just a bunch of back and forth between the two, which is super, super great. They're setting up a plan, trying to look into more of the tracksuit gang, more into her mom's boyfriend and all that. And they also start decorating the place. They start decorating the Christmas tree and everything. And at one point, she like brings up like, oh, I think it was like, what other tricks can you do or something? Oh, okay, no, I remember now. They brought up the trigger. I was like, how much more there is, and then he brought up that like, he doesn't really have much more. It's basically the last of it, because I'm pretty sure Tony Stark was the one that supplied him that. And so they had to come up with a plan to bring it, whatever he has left, out of the police. And then she asked him, like, what other tricks can he do? And he brought up the idea that he's able to, like, flick this, like, I don't know. It looked like some pin or something. He said he can do it with, like, a quarter or a penny, I think. I don't know. Some coins. And he's able to like flick it to someone's head and knock them out with it. And she's just like, bullshit. And then like he flicks it, turns off the TV, and then they start practicing that. And she got it like, I don't know, 5th try or something. Which is, it was just a cool sequence.
Yeah.
And they just keep drinking together and all that. Again, it was just a really cool character build up for the both of them. And then that's when the conversation went that she said, what was the best shot he's taken? And he goes, the one that I never took. And
yeah,
basically what we all guessed. He met Nat, who was set to kill her. But as soon as they met, he was about to take the shot, but didn't, because it seemed as if she was trying to run away from something. It seemed like she wanted out. And Kate put the pieces together that it was Nat. And then I can't remember how it was brought up, but she brought up the Ronin costume. I don't know if it was like because of why was it important to him, or
well, because what happened in this particular exchange, Clint, tells the story of how he met Natasha. Wonderful callback to her, but Kate pieces together. I think they're watching It's a Wonderful Life on TV. Wonderful movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Wonderful Christmas movie. She watches a scene with George Bailey and his family being reunited at the end of the film. And I feel like, what was it? That considering how much of an emphasis that Hawkeye has been placing on, trying to get back to his family this entire Christmas. While watching that footage, Kate pieces together and then asks him, you lost your whole family in the blip. And then he confirms it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, that's when the Ronin came on the scene. And so at that point, she asks him, you're Ronin, or something like that. And so she kind of puts all the pieces together on her own. and they have a wonderful back and forth. And that is, again, this is a really interesting, I think, commentary on Clint Barton that we never really had the chance to do before. And I know it was a running joke. When the Avengers movie first came out in 2012, and I think even Tony Stark did this about when he, was telling Loki about all the different players on the roster and a couple of master assassins, that being in the case of Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff. But it is really interesting how in this MCU, you had two of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most elite assassins end up being role models, superheroes on the Avengers that changed this particular universe. And you see here Clint kind of and we saw it back in the exchange they had at the diner in episode 3, but definitely here too, in where Clint, Kate's a little bit, confused about what Clint talks about, and when he says that, he was mainly trained to and used to hurt people. And she's kind of baffled by that because, of course, this is Kate Bishop, and, she's looked up to Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is her hero. And she's just like, but you save people. You're a hero. And Hawkeye basically says to the effect of, well, I've been used for most of my life, really, to hurt other people. I mean, to investigate, but eventually to hurt people. And then that's what he did ultimately as Ronin during the time of the blip. But it's interesting because you get a little bit of a look into how Clint really was never comfortable with the idea of him being a role model or a superhero. Of course, not in this period. Obviously, after he can't get over a lot of things, but of course he has not forgiven himself for kind of the monster he became. But even before then, and again, it was never acknowledged because there wasn't time to acknowledge that, but he seemingly suggests that he was never really comfortable with the moniker of him being a superhero. So I just thought that was interesting. And of course, the whole thing you have here with Kate is that she's trying to inject more humanity in that and maybe kind of dispel that notion, and how she keeps bringing up the suit and the suit and the suit. And hopefully by the time that Hawkeye puts that suit on, he'll finally embrace that superhero moniker that's eluded him for much of his career. Mm-hmm. Or at least for much of what he feels is his identity. So that's kind of how that exchange went. I'm sorry, I think I kind of went off, but that's kind of what I read in between the lines about what was going on there.
No, yeah, for sure. That's cool. But yeah. And then, so yeah, she did piece together that he was Ronin. She was pretty shocked by that, but she still believes in him as a hero, basically.
Yeah. And that's an interesting reaction. I thought for sure maybe it was going to create maybe a fissure between them. Yes. But it didn't.
Yeah, I like that, though.
Yeah,
cool.
I do. No, yeah. Doesn't need to waste time on that.
Yeah. And then I think it might have been the next morning, but they're...
Well, don't forget when they go to bed and Hawkeye takes off his hearing aid.
Oh, yeah.
And then...
He takes off his hearing aid and he's having these flashbacks of losing Nat. I just remember him losing Nat, but I can't remember the rest. I think...
Well, it was basically... there was a line of dialogue from Avengers Endgame when, she says to Clint, you think killing all these people is going to help bring you back your family? Mm-hmm. Him being as a Ronin, and then, of course, the big thing is him having to... or dropping Natasha on Vormir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot about that. But then we cut to the next day, and they're setting off to their game plan. Clint tells Kate to go look for some LARPers, because a bunch of them are cops or firefighters and all that, so maybe they can help with the bow and arrow stuff.
Yeah, the trick arrows that were confiscated by NYPD, presumably from the events of last episode.
Mm-hmm. And then that's what she hits too. She's like in some park or something. She finds him, and she's just kind of like, "Wow, you guys are taking this really seriously," because they're like, they're practicing sword moves and all that. They're just like really intense about it. But she asked them like, "Hey, is there a cop here?" Asked them for a favor, and they're like, "Yeah, if we get something in return." They didn't know what. They just like, we're helping Hawkeye.
Pretty bold of those people to ask for that much in return. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Huh?
This is an Avenger, and they're really pushing it with how much they want something in return. But you know what? They're getting what they want.
Yeah.
They got an invite back to Hawkeye headquarters, I guess. And they made themselves at home pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
That was funny.
And then the deal was that they made up later on was that they're gonna make his costume and Kate's costumes.
That's amazing. I love that.
I know. And it was funny because I was looking at the pictures, and I mean, I like his design, but from the pictures, I was like, why does it look cheap? Like, I know it's a show, but there's just something about the costume that, like...
Well, maybe it's because LARPers made it?
Yeah, and that's why I was like, okay, now that makes sense. The LARPers are making it. They're just putting...
You mean to say it looks homemade, David? Not so much cheap, but homemade.
Sure, yes. It's homemade. But yeah, like there was a reason to it, and then maybe if he comes back to a movie, he's kind of like, fine, I'll keep the design, but like he just adds some upgrades to it or something somehow. But yeah, what was Clint doing during that time?
He went to go pay a visit to Echo's number 2.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, he visits him. Gets behind the car, takes his gun that was like, I don't know, in the glove compartment or something, and he just tells him like, you seem pretty level-headed, so your boss said like, just let this go. Her following the Ronin is just gonna lead her to her death. I'm sure you don't want that. Everyone can come out of this alive. Just tell her to let it go, basically. And yeah, that's basically their conversation. Oh, actually, he asked about his boss, I guess. His boss's boss.
Right.
The boyfriend. But yeah, it was just kind of a bit of a badass scene. I actually like the ending though, where he leaves the car and you see him in the back, just like he throws the gun away, and the guy's like, come on."
Well, I don't think he was. I don't think Hawkeye was referring to Duquesne as like his boss's boss. Like, yes, Duquesne's company does money launder for the Tracksuit Gang, but that doesn't, in my eye, necessarily make Jack the de facto head of that crime organization. I think Hawkeye was referencing, as he kind of referenced before, I think, because there was a scene in episode 3 where he and Kate were walking, I think in the park, maybe it must have been Central Park, but he was making reference of like the man at the top of things. I think he was referring to Wilson Fisk. About his boss not liking all this attention. Wilson Fisk would not like all this attention, especially would not like the attention of an Avenger being taking interest in this. And if you recall back in episode 3, Echo's number 2, I don't remember his name, but we see him. He's having this discussion with Echo about how her uncle wouldn't like this. So we see the seeds being. I feel pretty confident that what all of that is in reference to is Wilson Fisk, who is obviously the kingpin and the one at the top of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
And who knows? By the way, who knows? I think the question could still be out there that Eleanor and Jack are in cahoots, and both of their companies are associated with Kingpin's crime organization.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. Again, hope we get info on that in the next episode. But yeah, after that, he goes back to his headquarters, and then again, They meet the LARPers. They make a deal. They all make their costume. And the cop that was supposed to get the trick girls is back. And she gives it to them. But you get this... I don't know. To me, it was kind of awkward. But she was like, you don't have your own bag? This is my bag.
That's an example of one of the lesser MCU jokes, but it was actually it was less funny than it was sad, which kind of also made it funny, a reverse funny situation, because she cared so much about that bag and that her wife handmade that and embroidered it and everything. That poor woman is never going to see that bag again. I don't know what the fuck she was thinking, but what made the comedy in that work was the look on Jeremy Renner's face. It's like, are you serious right now? On top of all of this is what I have to argue with? And I also love his reaction of going back to the apartment and like these people being around.
Yeah, that's funny.
Go Team Hawkeye.
Yeah, go Team and then cut to it being dark. And they're just...
Literally.
Oh, he gets a text with the watches, and they head over there. It's dark. They're just trying to look at the building and all that. And then again, I really like these moments though, where he's like he's not really he doesn't mean to train her, but he also is training her. And she's like, "Why don't we go to higher ground so we can like see better? And, make a quick entry." He's like, "I don't care about the entry. I want to know about the exits. And getting inside is always easy, but you want to know every single exit that you can take." It's just, I don't think that info like that's really gonna come back in the show. But like, I would love it though. If a second season or her own movie, whatever comes next, they pay attention to those details and actually like give us a little payoff later on. But yeah, so she goes inside, but she doesn't like grapple in or anything. She just like literally walks up to the front door, helping this one guy with his groceries and all that, and that's how she makes it up. She's looking around. She's noticing these flashing things. She didn't know whether they were cameras or sensors or whatever, but later on we find out that it was like, I think it were motion sensors or there was a security thing, and basically they find out that the apartment that the watch is at is Echo's apartment, and she gets into a fight with her.
And those alarms were for deaf people.
That's true. I didn't think of that. No.
Well, as soon as it was Echo's apartment, then it made sense what those things were.
Yeah. No, I get it. So Kay and Echo get in a fight. She manages to escape because Clint shoots an arrow across, and she's gonna what's it called? I guess slide towards the other side, but it was a complete fail. She made it halfway and stopped. She's just like, God damn it. While that was happening, Clint also was fighting someone. He thought it was Echo, but it was someone else. I didn't know who it was at first, but then as soon as you see the bracelets shocking thingy, I knew right away who that was. So you get a pretty cool fight going on. It's like, Kay versus Echo, but then Ko versus Yelena, and all that. And at one point, Kate, she falls off the roof and she's hanging there. Clint freaks out. Luckily she was tied or something to the building, and he looks down, and clearly it was the same situation as with him and Nat on Vormir, and this time he actually...
That was a nice moment. That got me.
Yeah.
That got me. They did it again. Those assholes, they did it, but it worked. That definitely worked for me. I mean, and you also, again, the motif, the Vormir motif did play in the background, if ever so subtly, but it was there. But, and also just it was those assholes, they did it again. Don't do that. Stop doing this. Because the parallel was just so overt, but it worked. It definitely here, though.
Yeah, it worked. And especially because, it was just different, though, because this time he was okay with letting go just to keep her safe at all costs. And
I love how, by the way, when she hits the ground, she's like, she gets so pissed off that she doesn't leave, obviously. She gets up, she goes back up to the roof, and then while Echo, Yelena, and Hawkeye are having, I guess, honestly, they don't even know what the fuck's going on. They're just like, they're hitting things, and then she gets one of the trick arrows, and then she just like creates an explosion that causes them all to fall to their feet. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, that'll teach you to throw me off the building.
Yeah.
By the way, good on Kate Bishop for holding her own in that battle. I mean,
no, yeah.
There's a fucking, literally.
No, yeah, she was great. And, like, Echo was clearly, like, kicking her ass. The only reason she left was because, bow and arrow versus fist fight. Not really much competition. So Echo leaves. And then it's just between...
Well, she leaves after, I think, Kate stabs her with... or she impales her with one of the arrows through her... But then also, Echo... What I thought was comical about Echo exiting that battle was she kind of... She has this look at... She looks... Go...
She just... I mean, for one thing, she looks annoyed, but she also just walks away. It wasn't like some grand exit. It was just like, okay...
She just walks away.
You take the back door. Cool.
She's like, why am I here? Yeah. She just walks away. Because it's also confusing. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but fuck you. Just it was funny.
Yeah.
She just gets lost.
So then Clint, throughout this fight, we don't know it's... Well, I mean, it's the Yelena because of the bracelets, but like, her face is covered, so they don't know. But Clint manages to take off her mask, and she shoots him with the shocking thingy. But Kate is there right behind her with the bow and arrow, but she doesn't take the shot or anything. Some people are saying it's because she sees that she that she wants to leave. She doesn't want to be a part of this, Yelena. But for me, I was just kind of like, I don't think she's ever actually killed, so she was just kind of like giving her a warning. That's how I saw it.
I was wondering why she walked away as well, or she ran. I think I don't think either of those reasons are it. I feel like she just left because she realized she underestimated Clint, and she wasn't gonna be able to kill him at this point. So she just like went back to regroup. Yeah,
no, I mean, I get it with Yelena. She left because, again, Kate had an arrow to her and all that, so there's not much she could have done in that moment, I guess. And I mean, yeah, I guess your thing too, in over her head a bit, but
also, what a strange collision of worlds, right? Like, who would have thought you'd ever see a scene with like two Hawkeyes, Clinton Barton and Kate Bishop, fighting off against the Black Widow being Yelena Belova, and then also Echo.
Yeah.
But to be fair though, Yelena's she literally just crashed into the show out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, this was pretty fucking random, and that was one of the things I had issues with. Was how out of nowhere this came out of. And I feel like, I don't know, like, we'll have to see how it wraps up, right? And how she plays into the final 2 episodes. But maybe, I guess, initially what I see here is another one of these things that annoys me about the MCU, where like, well, you would know this if you saw the post-credit scene of Black Widow, which teased this is going to happen. Which, okay, but if you don't have... Even if I did have that, I did see that, and it still felt abrupt. And like, what? What's this bitch doing here? So that still felt very like, okay, well, something else is clearly happening here. But I am willing to see where it goes, because potentially speaking... again, this is all doing a lot of great work to really capstone the legacy of Natasha, but it could do a lot of good in terms of both Clint and Yelena making peace with Nat's death finally.
For sure.
If the work is put into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe it was because it was dark and you could barely see a thing, but there were some shots where I'm not convinced Florence Pugh, who plays Yelena Belova, was actually there. If she filmed those scenes somewhere else and they just kind of like, and that was a body double that Renner was fighting against, because I don't know, it felt a bit awkward, a little, and also not all that wonderfully choreographed. Like there were, like, I don't know what you could do really when, like, there's a lot of punching going on, and then she was in this dark suit, but I don't know, it looked a little wonky. I have to see it again, but it just felt, that mixed in with the abruptness of her being in this episode, just kind of like, it felt like it was throwing way too much at me. I mean, it was exciting, obviously, but also, I don't know if it just didn't look that great.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Yeah, I get you. But yeah, so Yelena leaves, and Clint is just like, okay, yeah, for sure, you need to get out of this now. He's talking to Kate. Black Widow is involved now. So she just got really, really real. And she's trying to tell him, like, nah, I can handle this and all that. But he's just not taking that chance anymore. So he leaves. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. That's pretty much mostly where we're going to wrap things up. But there are some things to go over. The Rolex. And also the notes that Kate finds. Mm-hmm. How did Echo get that information? Was that information written on the Rolex? Who does that Rolex belong to? Mm-hmm. Because I'm seeing some theories out there that suggest that it was implied in this episode that the Rolex belongs to Laura.
Yeah.
Clint's wife.
Yeah, I heard those theories too. And I mean, it could, but I just don't see why anyone would put that info in a Rolex.
Unless it was like, I know it's unless it was some spy shit, but then in lies, and that's why I was like asking beforehand about, like, you know, some of the things that Laura seems to be capable of. And again, this is like not really a character, but she's just someone that's been in the background for the longest period of time. Mm-hmm. And so we don't know that much about her to begin with. But there are theories out there that suggest, alongside some other rumors about the show that were long-standing, of the MCU introducing the Mockingbird comic book character into the show. And I guess this theory would suggest that Laura Barton would be the MCU's version of Mockingbird, and that Laura, in fact, was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent as well, and that's how she met Clint, mm-hmm. which, of course, would be a retcon because that's not been mentioned, that's not been established. Again, there's nothing in the past that would, at least in my memory. Now, again, we've only seen her in, like, brief glimpses in Endgame and then maybe a little bit more in Age of Ultron. Laura, particularly, them talking about. Now, in my memory, there's nothing to negate the fact that they could retroactively, like, make her a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and the moniker of Mockingbird without much of a hassle to do it. I guess you could make it fit. And in the comics, of course, Mockingbird, from what I hear, Mockingbird and Hawkeye do have a pre-existing relationship, and that would back up the fact that the Rolex is hers, and that this, I guess it's a S.H.I.E.L.D. watch or whatever, and it would have that information. Now, let me read to you, I guess this real quick, the Entertainment Weekly piece of it that pretty much catches up people, for those that may be lost about what the fuck we're talking about, right? But I have been seeing this gain traction, and I think it honestly, it does sound plausible. But what it means, though, for another Mockingbird, we'll see, right? So, from Entertainment Weekly, could Hawkeye be introducing the character of Mockingbird? Yes, we know that technically the Marvel Universe has already had a Mockingbird. Adrienne Palicki played the character in the long-running Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a few years ago, though she was simply known as the superhero alias Bobby Morse. That was the character's name in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was never officially monikered. Not once in the entire time that she was on that show did anybody call her Mockingbird. Not a single time. Just to clarify that. And then they are correct when they do say that. But yeah, what they say here, making Laura Barton the MCU's version of Mockingbird would not only make sense on a narrative level, but it would also tie into the character's established history without both longtime fans and new viewers having to be introduced to a new character. So here's the thing. I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea that Clint's wife is Mockingbird, or at least Mockingbird in the traditional sense of what people know the comics to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think people would think that would annoy me because, well, I mean, what will annoy me is what people will read into the fact that, well, they'll use this as evidence yet again to say that S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't happen, or that, well, because they got another Mockingbird. Mockingbird is an alias. Many people can have the same alias. You know why? Because this fucking universe has. There are multiple Black Widows. There are multiple Captain Americas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this happens all the time. So, first of all, the hell with that commentary. Also, S.H.I.E.L.D., they never called Bobby Mockingbird. Not one time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of the outlets, the media outlets referred to her as Mockingbird. And she's very much based off the character in appearance and with the weapons, the batons that she had. And very much, from what I understand, the tumultuous relationship that she had with her ex-husband, played by Nick Blood, Lance Hunter, was very much in line with what the feel of that character was in the comics. True. But again, never officially called Mockingbird. So they can make her, Laura the Mockingbird without it shaking things up too much.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, and I think you've heard this part of the theory, at least I heard someone suggest that beyond just giving Laura the moniker of Mockingbird, this other part of the theory would suggest that, so she was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and she didn't want to be that, and Nick Fury, while setting up this farm situation for Clint's family, had to put Laura into the witness protection program, which would mean changing her name.
Mm-hmm.
And so the theory went that Laura's name isn't Laura after all. If she's Mockingbird, then her real name is Bobby Morse. Now there we get into some territory that is weird. For a lot of reasons. First of all, it doesn't really make all that sense because unless, I don't know, Clint's acclimated to it, but it's Clint's wife. If her real name is Bobby and he knew her as Bobby, probably would still call her Bobby. Probably wouldn't call her by a fake name.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, of all things. So there, it kind of like doesn't seem to hold all that water, at least for me. But then we cut into some annoying territory because if they're going to have another character called Bobby Morse, but wait a minute, Adrian Palacki played a character called Bobby Morse, and that would be a cataclysmic event in terms of like the standing of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if that were to happen.
Mm.
That would pretty much be definitive one way or the other about what that means without saying too much more about that. But that creates the potential for some pretty ugly territory. Your thoughts in filtering throughout all of these things that I just said?
I don't think she would be Mockingbird. Just because, if you're going to add a superhero or a comic book character in this universe, you kind of...
And then do nothing with it.
Yeah. It seems a bit of a waste.
Because that would suggest that, oh, Mockingbird existed, and here's and the whole point we're even saying this is for the sake of a reveal, but you'll never ever then see the Mockingbird character be used again.
Mm-hmm. Especially because...
What sense does that make?
Yeah, especially because of that name Mockingbird, but also, what is it, Bobby? I feel like she might, at least her comic book character might be like a minor character. I don't know. Like I didn't know. I knew in Agents of Shield, that character was called Mockingbird, but I didn't know that she was a comic book character for a while. So, she's like that character is definitely low tier, and it just feels like a bit of a waste to just put it on her and not do anything. So,
right, like unless. Because she's retired, she's a mom now. It's like, and Linda Cardellini has barely anything to do. So, like, what would the point be?
Yeah, unless they want to build up that the daughter will take over. But it seems like they don't want the kids to be involved in any way, in any of this, in any way.
Right.
So I highly doubt that's going to happen. But yeah.
So if it's not that theory, okay. So then. But then what you're saying is you don't accept that Laura will be Mockingbird, but you do accept that Rolex belongs to Laura. But it also doesn't make sense why all of Laura's information about her family would be on that watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she could be a certain character. I don't know. But if she's gonna be used later on, though, then. I don't know. I feel like. I mean, I don't really know what they would do with her, though. I don't know. Unless it's just.
Me neither.
I mean, unless it's more than one name in the Rolex, and she just happens to like try to look for Clint Barton related stuff. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss there too. But I guess that's kind of where we're gonna end it, right? Because I don't know what else we can say.
Yeah.
Great time. Episode 5 is gonna have some big reveals from what I hear. So
I hope so.
We'll see what happens there. Thank you so much for listening to all of us here at Red Spotlight. Thank you, David, for being here, and don't forget to listen to our next episode with Peter Martinez as we discuss Arcane, League of Legends, a big review coming up. And then, of course, we'll be back here, David and I, next week to discuss episode 5 of Hawkeye. Stay on our Spotlight, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.